Well, hello, everyone. No matter where you are, thank you for joining us today. I'm Jeff Steck from Tylerica Marketing Systems in Austin, Texas. And joining me today are Ian Kentel from Outsource Marketing in the Toronto area up in Canada, and Ken Tucker and Paul Barthel from Changescape Web in St. Charles, Missouri. So today's topic is business networking. I've been doing a lot more networking lately. I think a lot of people have based on the turnout. And we're going to explore the ins and outs of effective business networking. It can be a powerful tool for any small or medium business owner. So, networking is more than just handing out business cards. It's about building meaningful connections that can open doors to new clients, to partnerships, and even get you invaluable industry insights. So, today we'll walk you through how to set clear networking goals, make memorable impressions, and follow up with purpose. So, we're going to give you some practical tips, whether you're an introvert seeking to ease into networking. Introverts often make the best networkers, by the way, or a seasoned pro aiming to refine your approach. Let's jump in and learn how to make every connection count. So, Ken, let's start with you. Why is networking important for small, medium businesses, and what unique benefits does it offer?
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't work and operate in a vacuum. If your business is exclusively online, you still can do networking, right? I mean, you can be a part of mastermind groups or community groups to still have conversations, via Zoom or whatever. I think you're probably talking a little bit more in your focus here about in-person networking. So that's what I'm going to really focus on the most. I mean, it's a really good way to get your business and your name and you as the representative of the business out there to the community. Um, there are definitely things that you need to do, and you can't just show up for a meeting and think that it's going to work well. You got to do some prep for that, which we'll talk more about. But I mean, going to events is an important dimension, whether it's an industry partner event that you go to, whether it's a group of businesses based around a community like a chamber of commerce or business networking international kind of a meeting, things like that. You want to build these relationships. There are leads and referrals that can come from these meetings. Again, I think you need to plan and have a plan to be able to make that happen. But you know, being visible and being present, online as well as in person. I mean, the first rule of all of this is showing up, right? I mean, if you're not showing up, nobody's going to ever see you and know that you have a business, let alone what you do. So I think that's important. Um, it gives you the opportunity to, most networking events have some level of education attached to them. Usually a speaker, usually a luncheon or a breakfast or a happy hour or something like that. And so there's an opportunity sometimes for a little bit of formal education, but also just, as you talk to people, you learn about their business, their different aspects of their business. I think there's value in that because, for me, I love to learn about any business and how they're operating and what's working well for them and what are challenges for them because I love this concept of reason by analogy. If I can hear how something's working with one business in one industry, I want to see what can I take from that and apply to what I'm working on or what I'm working on for a customer. So, just but by the fact that you're communicating with people, there should be a certain degree of learning there. Now, if you go and you approach and all you do is just broadcast, like a sales bot, this is what we do, this is what we do, that's not networking, right? I mean, networking is sharing and trading ideas and ideally building relationships that can lead to referrals and past business. It's a great way to meet up with people who could potentially become your mentors or turn you on to other learning opportunities. I think just showing up to these events being seen on a regular basis by the organizers, but also by the people who also regularly tend to show up, just enhances a certain amount of credibility and trust. Again, if you just show up and you don't interact with anybody, or you show up and all you do is just, do sales pitches over and over and over again, you're going to destroy that credibility really fast. But, if you do literally go with a mindset of collaboration, building partnerships, building alliances, I think that that's really a very strong thing that almost every business can do. Now, the question is, these things are often billed as free. Sometimes they're inexpensive if they are paid, because you may have to pay for like a luncheon for a chamber, or you have to pay for facility costs, even with like a BNI chapter or things like that. You do need to put a time and a monetary value associated with the time it takes you to spend in networking, not just networking, but preparing and following up. There are so many hidden costs here that most people don't even take into consideration. And so I think, you have to take all of that into consideration to figure out, how important and how viable is this as a channel for you. And we'll talk more about, personality styles and whether or not networking can work right for everybody as we're getting more into the weeds here. But, it's just, I think it's just, it's part of branding and visibility, and, building a support network. I mean, we're not, as a business, you're not in this alone. If you try to operate your business as a loner, you're probably going to have a hard time. So you've got to have a support network. You've got to have, relationships that are meaningful, and networking is historically a really strong way to do that.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of really good stuff. I know you mentioned online. I think especially since the pandemic, you mentioned BNI. I know some local BNI chapters have gone to a hybrid model where it used to be you would meet with them every week, over breakfast, over lunch. And of course, then, like you said, you have the cost of meals and facilities in there. But now they may be hybrid where they're meeting live once a month and on Zoom for the rest of the time. So networking can happen online. It doesn't have to be in person. But it's that.
There are what is it, Coffee With or something like that, where that's specifically designed just to create a one-to-one conversation as a networking opportunity. So there are all kinds of digital facilities to do this in, as well as in person.
Yeah.
I would
got one other observation, but I want to let Ian and Paul talk. So go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's a richness that's lost in digital or video type formats, right? Yes, that it saves you travel time. But I think anybody who does both would agree that, like, you can't beat missing or meeting people in person, right? There's just a richness in the connections you make, the interactions that are happening in the group, whether it's before the formal part of the meeting, after the formal part of the meeting. And when you're in digital formats, rarely do you have that richness of connection. The other thing that popped into mind when I was listening to you, Ken, was we could all actually probably do a whole show on what not to do in networking. But I remember being at a few networking groups over the years, and there's one form, or you were talking about like being prepared. There's one thing I saw a guy do, and this was different guys that did this in different meetings, and it was like they had a quota of business cards they had to hand out, and they actually didn't make any connections with people. They just made sure they handed you a business card or left it on the plate of somebody. And I'm like, that's the worst possible, like, it felt like sleazy sales guy kind of stuff, right? But it wasn't connection making. And I think that's the key, that, the bottom line when I listened to you was, it's about those it's relationships, right?
Well, hopefully they weren't creepy and just dropping it down in your shirt pocket or jacket pocket.
In my soup.
Yeah, drive by business carding.
The only time I'll do a broadcast of a business card, leaving one in every chair, every place setting, is if I'm the speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you said, it's about making genuine personal connections, and you're not making genuine personal connections if you're, just show up and throw up. And that applies to how you get your name out there. You don't want to get it out there in the wrong way, but also, like you said, Ken, it can't be just buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. That gets old really fast. It's
Yeah.
about building relationships.
Yeah.
Paul, anything you want to add on this one?
No.
Consummate networker.
if I can add one more thing, you talked a little bit about BNI, and I wanted to mention, just because BNI is very accessible to a lot of businesses, right? And a lot of businesses have heard of it or try it. The one thing I would say about BNI that is a beautiful thing, it's got its pros and cons. It's very different from other types of networking groups. Like, it's not like a chamber. You have exclusivity in your seat, right? There's different things that are really valuable. But the one thing I would say that's really, really good about BNI, even if it's in a hybrid model, is the consistency of building relationships, and the training that's available. So if you're not an extremely good networker, the training that you can get at BNI, whether it's the actual hands-on, like I've watched guys go from like shattered, jittery speakers to confident deliverers of messages, right?
Yeah.
So the training that you can get there is spectacular. There's courses, there's in-person, online, there's the actual hands-on, there's the mentoring you get. So lots of really good things in a BNI group.
Yeah.
If you invest wisely in it.
I think one of the other things you hit on, Ken, it kind of goes into the, just broadcasting business cards too, is I've been to networking events where somebody shows up and they may be literally, I've seen some where it's just somebody who's paid, just go to this event and give out business cards. And that's not going to be effective. Or even somebody whose intentions were good and they truly wanted to meet people, they show up at the event and then you never see them again. There's a certain amount of repetition involved before people are going to let you in, before they really go, yeah, okay, let me find out what this person's all about. Someone feel comfortable enough, learn enough to say, hey, I want to connect with this person on a one-to-one level.
Yeah.
We'll probably get into more of that as we talk about the mechanics, because we are going to get into questions about how you prep for networking, what you do at networking, and how you follow up. But before we do that, Paul, where would somebody begin to look for networking events? Let's say somebody is listening and they say, yeah, I probably should network. I don't know where to get started. What would you tell them about where to start looking?
Yeah, we've touched on a lot of this. Online networking, 70%, and I think this is a result of COVID, 70% of small business owners network online. But people that network, they're like, unlike me, they want to talk to people. They tend to, they want to go to these in-person events. We talked about trade shows. 5 to 20% of new customers come through trade shows, supposedly, which means about 80 to 90% of those people going to trade shows are trolls. So, but apparently it works for some businesses. Chamber of Commerce, they almost always have some kind of events going on, and show up, take advantage of it. Some larger cities, they have networking events that they post on a site called Meetup, and those are outside of the chamber and the networking groups like BNI or H7 Network, but there's these organized networking groups that you can take advantage of. But one thing is, don't try to just talk to as many people as possible. The purpose, the reason behind these things is to build relationships, and then that can turn into referral sources. So just say, oh, I'm going to talk to like 500 people this month. Okay, that's great. But if you build these relationships, they can actually turn into referral sources. And speaking, Jeff, you talked about if you're a speaker at an event, speaking and sponsorship opportunities. You have an expertise to share, and speaking at something that's relevant at someplace that's relevant to your business, that can lead to opportunities as well, because you're establishing yourself as an expertise in your industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll use that one as a personal example. In 2 weeks or so, middle of November, I've been the invited speaker to a small networking group that is set up by, I think the guy's a financial advisor, and he sets up, breakfast meetings to network. Now, his overall goal is to expand his reach, right? So you don't even have to look for networking opportunities in all cases. If it suits you, you can create them, right? Create your own networking groups, invite some people in.
Yeah.
So this is an example of both. I'm going to do a breakfast talk, and doing it with somebody who's creating their own group. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. Sorry, what's your favorite what?
Breakfast. Is that you're going to do a breakfast talk? I'm sorry.
That's not the topic, but yeah, I might open with that. So.
Okay.
Bacon.
By the way,
bacon. You can't go wrong with bacon.
By the way, a little insider tip: if you want people to pay attention to your presentation, you use jokes, because jokes catch people's attention. It brings them back to listen again, because it's easy to drift off and lose track, even if it's a very interesting topic. So that was a little
safe jokes.
Yeah, I like using AI to generate the jokes myself.
Or stories. Stories are incredibly powerful. And don't we're kind of getting into the speaking realm, but don't just start, hi, I'm Jeff. I do, I'll start by telling a story. I'm like a minute and a half into my talk before people but that's wait a minute, what's going on? It's a pattern interrupt. They're listening. They kind of get the point of the story, but they don't know who I am. And then I branch into that. So you got to get their attention first, especially if you're talking after lunch, and then people are like,
yeah.
I never start mine with hi, I'm Jeff. But maybe I'll try it next time.
Yeah.
I could. Yeah, feel free. Just put my contact information up, and yeah, we'll be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. Again, depending on your style too. BNI has been mentioned several times. I tell people BNI is a great system. It truly is a networking system. They have a very methodical process they go through. Ken mentioned it's exclusive. There's only one of any given type in there. But I found that it varies a lot based on the type of people in it. It works great for trades. Maybe not so much where things are a little slower moving. We're not needing to get 3 clients every week. We get 3 clients a quarter, maybe, right? So BNI will work for some people. It won't work for others. And what I tell people, it's a great system if it works for you personally. It doesn't work for me, but that's me. Some of the others that Paul mentioned, H7 Network is an online. There's 40 or 50 different groups you can drop in, drop out. It's non-exclusive. It's also got a training component. They teach you how to do networking as part of it. Network in Action is another big. I think they're a franchised networking group actually with local things. And then Meetup. Paul mentioned Meetup. Here in Austin, there is no shortage of networking events. You can network at 10 different events every hour if you wanted to. I kind of feel.
Yeah.
And you just look for them on meetup.com.
Yeah.
Ready for the next question? Exhausted where? Let's go to Ian then. Ian, how can business leaders prepare for networking, and what goals should they set to make it effective?
Yeah, I think first of all, they shouldn't prepare. They should just wait to the last minute, almost forget that they have the networking event, rush to it, be late, look disheveled, be sweating.
Out of cards, don't have cards.
And then leave immediately after without talking to anybody. I think that is the key to success. I love the preparation question. I've actually been in BNI for 9 years now, and it's been extremely lucrative to me. But one of the things I find that I love about it is that you switch roles all the time. Like, in fact, they've put that as a policy. You have to switch your role every year. So this year I'm a mentor, which is causing me to think more about preparation and how I can, first of all, help myself prepare better, but also help other members prepare better. And so I think the key for any of this is plan your time, right? Just as I was giving a bad example of how not planning your time can affect it. So plan your time. Think about who your audience is, because just like with any marketing, if you don't know your audience well, like if you're going to I don't know, lots of different examples, but like you have to know who you're speaking with. And the beauty is with most organizations, with BNI for sure, but with other organizations, you might even get a list ahead of time of who's going to be at that meeting, who are the visitors, who are the members, which helps you prepare and helps you align whatever you say, your infomercial, your sales manager minute, whatever you want to call it, your spiel. You can create something that aligns with your listeners. And I think that's one of the most important things. I love what you said about story, jokes, like be memorable, have some sort of tagline for your business as well. But the next really, really important thing, other than knowing your audience, is to set clear goals. Like why am I going to this thing? Why am I joining this group? Why, what are my actual tangible goals? What are the things? And then specifically for the meeting you're going to, what tangibly do I want to come away with or leave after that meeting? So do I want to have one follow-up meeting scheduled with someone? Do I want to have 10 follow-up meetings scheduled with people? Do I want to help one person, right? If you're in a, I find with me, and maybe you guys find this with networking, because marketing is so sought after, it feels like you're a marketing medic half the time, and people are asking you questions like, I have this problem. How can, so a lot of times you're giving away free information to help them. What will you give people? Jeff, you joked about not having business cards, right? But it's true. Like you need to have some form of follow-up mechanism that's easily understood, and business cards are. Interestingly, on that point, I went down the path of getting like a digital business card. It's got the QR code. It's got the NFC tap. I actually find that really cumbersome now. Like I'd actually rather give somebody a tangible business card that's branded. And if they want an immediate connection to my stuff, we can still tap. I still have that ability. You can even get printed business cards now with NFCs built in. They're a little more expensive. QR codes are easy to put on them. But again, that goes back to what you want people to do. If you get a list ahead of time, who would you love to connect with? That is such a good question to ask. Like, are there particular, if you're a contractor who serves new home buyers, a real estate agent would be an amazing connection, right? So you think about who you want to connect with, create that strong elevator pitch, sales manager minute, whatever you want to call it, build in stories, build in actual anecdotal evidence that you do what you say you'll do. Don't confuse. This is, something Donald Miller always has coined, which is if you confuse, you lose. So keep it simple. Yep. Don't try to, what was your term, Jeff? Show up and throw up. Like, don't try to, I've done this so many times in like longer presentations where you absolutely, you have so much content you want to deliver. It's so valuable in your mind, but because of the rapid execution or delivery, because you're trying to fit it in such a compressed period of time, like you have a minute to get a point across to people in sales manager minutes or infomercials or elevator pitches. Like, be clear, be memorable, get it across to people. Go prepared with, like Ken talked about, jokes. Have some jokes ready. Be nimble. If it's first thing in the morning, make sure you have a coffee before you go, because you need to be alive when you go to these meetings. Ask open-ended questions. So important. Remember, you guys have probably experienced this, but remember, it's not about you. Yes, you're going because it's about building your business. But if you make it about you, you will just turn people off, right? We've all had people where, you sit down with them, it's a networking function. It might even be a meeting following a networking function. And they talk so long about themselves, they never actually learn about you. And I never want to be guilty of that. And I'm sure you guys don't as well.
If I could jump in on that point. If recommendation, pro tip, if you're doing one-on-ones online, use a recorder. That'll let you focus on the conversation instead of writing down notes. But also, I don't know if all of them, I use Fathom, and it will tell me, it'll flash up, hey, you're moving into monologue territory, or
Wow.
it'll give me a percentage of time each speaker, and that lets you kind of train yourself. If you do some online one-on-ones and use a tool like that, it will train you to make sure it's balanced.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Even for in person, there's a tool now called Plod, which is a credit card sized device. So you have to buy it, but it does a fantastic job of transcribing, summarizing, building mind maps, several different templates and formats available. You can, it's a really cool tool.
I have not heard of that. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Tases you when you start to talk too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
CLAUD.
wearable AI, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, they're getting ready. So the one they have now is a credit card size, but they're getting ready to release, or maybe just released, one that's like a pill capsule size that you could actually wear like on a necklace.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you swallow it and retrieve it later.
Yeah.
That's a different one. So just a few other things as far as preparation. If it's industry specific, hone up on your industry news. Know what the industry is talking about. Update your online profiles. Your especially your LinkedIn, right? You're doing business to business networking. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and compelling. And then, one thing I find has both pros and cons, but I see it valuable, especially for people that are uncomfortable physically attending a meeting. And that's try to find a networking buddy, like somebody that will go to you to a new group. They will help you feel more comfortable. The only thing to remember with that is don't just talk to them, because that's not why you're there. They're there as some form of comfort, and you can tag team a little bit to do networking. But oftentimes I see the downfall of that is that you actually forget that it's more about the new connections than, strengthening a relationship that you already have a strong one with.
Yeah. I love the networking buddy idea too, because they could also bail you out of when you're trapped in those conversations where people are spewing, information at you that, and trying to dominate and control the whole conversation with stuff that you really shouldn't be sharing at these meetings.
You can almost go beyond networking buddy and make it your networking wingman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually a guy I know here in Austin who's one of the consummate networkers, in my opinion. He knows everybody. And he regularly says, "Hey, I'm going to this networking event and you want to join me?" Or who else is going to this? It's part of how he connects with people, is to invite them along, whether it's, one-on-one as a networking buddy or just, building a bigger group.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. So, I mean, the key is don't just go in cold. Like, don't be that guy that Ian described at the beginning, right? Be intentional about it, because it can be a big part of your business growth and business success. And you want to maximize every opportunity you get. And that means doing your homework and being prepared. A little self-deprecating story on the industry news. I was a hiring manager in the technology space. Now, to be fair, it was semiconductors. And I went to a job fair kind of thing. And I wound up talking to a guy who was a software developer, very opposite end of the spectrum of technology I was in. But he said something. I said, "What do you do?" He goes, "Oh, I'm working in cold fusion." I go, "Oh, that's really cool. That's great. I mean, another, a couple of decades and we'll be getting some serious energy out of that. I bet." That was back when cold fusion, nuclear was all the rage. He kind of looked at me, and then I realized afterwards when I went home and looked it up that cold fusion is a software development platform. Yeah, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Ken, let's go back to you and continue this process. We've talked about preparation. Now let's talk about what should networkers focus on while actually at the networking event to make the best impression.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ian talked about a lot of really good things, and preparation is key. It really is. I think you also need to know yourself, and so I'm going to start there because I don't like networking events. I'm just going to put that out there. I go to as few as possible. My strategy is I love to educate and I love to help people solve problems. So I'm going to try to shift my energies and spend my time and my investment around where I can have a speaking opportunity or an education opportunity, and let the networking happen from that. So and I think everybody needs to be realistic about what are your strengths and weaknesses and your comfort zones. Some people crave the networking and the human connections that they get there. For me, it's just not the way I'm wired. So I think that's number one, is just absolutely know yourself. If you're an introvert, it's still important to try to get out there. You need to maintain that visibility, but you know yourself. If you need to step away, take a break, or specifically choose events that aren't longer duration where you feel like you're kind of trapped there, having to kick into the expert or extroverted mode, longer than you're typically comfortable doing. But having said that, you definitely need to have a plan. You want to focus on, I think the big mistake that most people make is they start talking about themselves. And I think it's better to try to ask questions to learn about others. That's where you're going to really start to build and deepen the relationship. You show that people care, you're showing people that you care. And active listening, and then from there, maybe trying to make connections for them based on what they're telling you. And kind of that proposition that we all use in digital marketing all the time: value in advance. Walk in there with a value in advance mindset. That doesn't happen when you walk in and you start spewing your spiel, before you give anybody an opportunity to talk about what they do, what's important to them, what the challenges are that they face. Dress appropriately, prepare, like if you're going to, a CEO level luncheon, you might want to dress differently than if you're going to a show where they're going to be largely tradespeople. Know what's going to make sense, and realize that, visual appearance and body language have massive impacts. So take that into consideration. Let's see. We talked about just don't do sales pitch, and pitch all the time. I think it's to echo what Ian talked about in terms of having a clear marketing message. We talk about this a lot. I'm a huge fan of StoryBrand. StoryBrand gives you the ability to come up with a one-liner, which is a really simplified way to describe what your brand script is, which is basically that 7-part framework that really communicates to people using the power of story. And so, you've got 15 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe a minute to communicate. So you need to have this kind of well honed, and it needs to talk about both problem and outcome, I think. And so having some people call it a sales pitch, StoryBrand would call it a one-liner, and it's like ours is, we do digital marketing so that most businesses struggle with small business marketing. We do digital marketing so that their businesses can grow and thrive, and so, that way people are like, okay, well, they may not know exactly what digital marketing is, but they probably know some level of marketing, and I want them to know that we're focused on trying to get business growth, so that's, those are key elements. Business cards, I like the digital business card approach still, because I like the fact that you can drive people to a landing page that's custom designed for letting people know who you are, what you do, and include your key calls to actions, whether that's to make it really easy to book a follow-on appointment, whether it's to download an ebook that's really important for you to get into the hands of people to start building that know, like, and trust. If you're in the trades, it could be, you could have portfolios of key projects or works that you've done. There are a lot of different things, and you don't get that with a regular business card. I personally, when I get a business card, I throw them away. I mean, I either refuse to take them, which I usually don't do. I usually do take them because I don't want to be rude, but I throw them away. I have no interest in carrying around 5,000 business cards. I would rather go look at somebody and see what they are saying is important to them, because that helps me understand, is there a connection? Is there a deeper potential business relationship there with a customer? That's just me. Everybody's different. I also like the fact, create a little card. It could be roughly, an envelope size card. So something like this, that instead of a business card, you just hand out a card with, a list of, the important things that you want people to know. Something that's going to fit conveniently, in a jacket pocket, or, something like that, I think works really well.
So Ken, you don't carry around a bunch of business cards from people you meet?
I do not. They.
I'll tell you the counterpoint on business cards, and I get digital cards, but I advocate both. Either have a something people can tap on your phone, they can connect on your phone, a QR code on your business card. But I still advocate physical paper business cards for a couple of reasons. One is personal preference. So turn that around. My personal preference is to get a paper card, and I'll tell you why in a second. But there you go. Yes, everyone's scanning his code. But the when you say I don't do paper cards, I'm not going to do paper cards, you're now in a sense alienating. I actually get annoyed at people that won't give me a business card. They want me to tap their phone, and then I've had bad experiences tapping the phone. The Wi-Fi, the internet's not good. It's like going to get a beer after work and then asking for the menu, and they say, well, just scan this code. Well, it's great. You're in a place where the cellular service sucks, right? Don't make me jump through hoops. Yeah. Give me the card. Let me do it on my terms. Don't say, oh, I'm only digital now. I get it if you're into saving paper, but it's not a huge difference. But here's the other thing. I learned this trick from a networking connection of mine. He'll meet somebody, he'll talk to him, he'll take the business card. If they're not a good fit, he doesn't want to follow up with them, he'll put it in his left pocket. If he wants to follow up with them, he'll put it in his right pocket. But here's the thing about business cards or any other physical thing. It's tangible. You get home at the end of the evening, at the end of the day, networking, you empty out your pockets. You're like, oh yeah, I've got to do something with that. I've met people at networking events, and I've connected with them right there on LinkedIn and totally forgotten to do any follow-up, because even if I go to LinkedIn, it's not going to tell me, oh, you met this person last night, do some follow-up, right? So there's a system. You have to have a method. I know we're going to talk about follow-up in a minute, but just something to trigger it. And the business cards are a viable way to do this. So my point with this long, see my little timer up there, is don't make assumptions and have something for everybody.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. I'm still not going to carry around. It's just not who I want to be seen as, and so if I miss those opportunities, I miss those opportunities. But it's a conscious decision, right? That's the key thing I think you're making is recognize. And, if I go to a place where I know people aren't digitally savvy, I probably would change my strategy, right? I mean, I would take a set of business cards if I could find them. But, the other thing, and I know Ian's going to talk about, or Paul's going to talk a little bit more about follow-up. But one of the things I do love about digital business cards is you can automate follow-up. That's the key. That's why I love them, because you can have, if somebody scans your card, you can set them into a series of, email messages that, you want to get in front of them, talking about overcoming objections or who your ideal customers are, so that they can do a better job of being a referral partner for you. And you can build that as an automation. That's why digital business cards to me are, that's my preference. Yeah. Of course, you got networking events to even have somebody scan your digital business card. So,
well, just a note on that, like we'll get to follow up, but a lot of CRM systems now. So like, even if I get people's business cards, I'm not keeping them in maybe there was a time where I used to keep them in a binder and stuff like that, right? Or I'd have a stack, and then like 2 years later, I'd like pitch the whole stack. But, most CRM systems now, even on your phone. Like I know the one we all use for our own teams and our clients, it's got scan a business card built right into the phone app, which puts them right in. And then, yeah, like I think personal preference aside, I think anytime you can build in a digital component to anything in print, you should be doing. Like that's what we would all be telling our clients. So
Yeah.
Hey, one more thing before we jump into the next question, do a time check. This notion of introverts and introverts not liking networking. I wanted to kind of dig back into that a little bit. I've got a networking colleague who's actually big into BNI. It was one of the area developers for BNI, and he maintained, and I kind of tend to agree with him, that introverts make the best networkers because they listen more, they listen better. They're not going to be that guy that shows up and throws up, that has commission breath, that just, is hardcore sell. They're content to listen more, and that can help them connect faster and deeper. And, you talked about going home at the end of the day and recharging. Yeah. This whole introversion, extroversion thing, people that meet me initially, and then afterwards I'll be talking to them and I'll say, oh yeah, I'm an introvert. And they'll look at me and go, really? You can push yourself to one extreme or the other. It's just at a cost, right? Yeah. So you go home at the end of the day and you revert back to introverts' way of recharging. So introverts can do it. They can push themselves out there. They can absolutely be great networkers. Just, use the strategies to recharge, and maybe even during the event, they need to take a little break and step outside or grab another beer,
and one thing, as an introvert, for me, if I'm going to go to a networking event, I think a speed dating kind of approach is better for me, because part of what stresses me out is, walking up and just introducing myself to somebody I don't know. But if you're going to be sitting down across the table, a minute each to kind of talk to each other about a business, and then you're going to go to the next table and kind of do that. To me, I like that, and I prefer that approach because it helps me deal with the things that I don't like about big networking events. Too many times, I see a lot of people, they use it as a way to just go talk to somebody that they're friends with. And it's like, what, if you're going to do that, just go to lunch. Don't waste your time at an event.
You just triggered one more thought before we move on, and it falls into the conversational etiquette about including other people. If you're at a networking event, especially if it's somebody and you're just catching up and not really networking, if you're standing face to face talking to them and somebody else walks up, don't just stand there and keep carrying on your conversation. That person is going to feel really, really awkward. And if they're an introvert, they may not break in. So kind of open up toward them a little bit and include them in the conversation. It's not a hard thing to do, but I can't tell you how many times I've been at networking events and I've just walked up. That's the point. You mill around, you meet and connect with people, right? And it's just, people are just chatting about their kids in the ball game, and they make no effort, whatever, to include. I just walk away. Yeah. That's a missed opportunity for networking. All right, let's move on.
Hold on. I have to say something, and I'm curious about your guys' response to this. So I hate, actually, that's not true. I was going to say I hate labels. I don't hate labels. I like labels that are used well. And one of the things that drives me crazy about introversion and extroversion, the discussion about it sometimes, is people make it black or white. You're either this or you're that. And I think through observation, and I actually think statistics prove this out, that most people it's a continuum. And you're on there somewhere, and some people are actually like kind of in the middle. Some people are more introverted. Some people are more extroverted. Just what you said at the very beginning of that point, Ken, was know thyself, right? Like know who you are, but be careful with the labels, because I've seen some people actually apply labels to themselves or to others, which is almost worse in some ways. And it can cause you to put people in a box that isn't very helpful to you or to them. So just a comment. So I'm curious if you guys feel similarly or.
Yeah, no,
actually,
there's definitely a range,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have greater capacity to flip from one to the other and back and forth. Just know what it does to you and your body and your mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if anyone that wants to do an online test, you can find it free. It's the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, and it is a range. And the farther you are toward one end or the other, the harder it is to act the other direction. The closer you are to the middle, you can move back and forth a lot easier. And to Ken's point to this discussion, yeah, go find that online test, take it, and you'll probably get some good strategies for how to use that information too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Ian, how can business owners, personnel, people that are out networking, follow up effectively to build lasting relationships?
Yeah, I think the first one is you mentioned this earlier, Jeff, was have a system, right? Whether it's putting, people you want to talk with, putting their business card in the left pocket versus the right, taking notes, like, before you move on to the next person, or just jot down a note, like, what did I promise this person I would do? Or at the very least, once you leave the event, you're sitting in your car, take 5 minutes and write down notes about the people you met. Right. I think that's the key part, because we switch rooms, or we switch, rooms in our mind, I mean, so quickly. And there's so much pressure in all of our personal and professional lives, that if you don't do something like that, if you don't systematize it in some way, if you don't put them in your CRM, like, it's just going to get lost, because it's almost like the social media stream, right? It's just this river that passes by you, and see you later, until the next time you see those people and you're like, I was supposed to follow up with them. You don't want that. And speaking of follow up, we had Jay Bear on, and he had a tiny little book called Time to Win, which was a fantastic little book. Tiny. Yeah, it's actually funny. It's like a little kid's book. Or that's what it reminds me of, but it's excellent. It's all about the speed of response. And there's statistics out there that if you don't respond within 24 to 48 hours, people will have moved on. Like, you need to respond quickly. Follow up is key. It's great to meet people. You need to follow up. Fulfill your promises. That's why a system's so important, even if it's scratch notes on a piece of paper. Like, you need to have a system so that you fulfill your promises. If you're going to commit to giving something away, like in presentations, I often give away, free SEO scans or something else related to people's marketing to inform and educate them. But if you're going to deliver it, make sure you deliver it. Add value. Share helpful resources. You could tape a QR code to your chest if you want, and have people scan it, which sounds weird. Maybe your back, I don't know, but
Sure.
it could be to an ebook, right? Like, just make sure, or tell people to text your number or whatever it is. Schedule a coffee with someone, a lunch with someone, a one-to-one. Just make sure you have some sort of next step. If any of you have ever read David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, it's all about that next action. That's the key thing to making sure that you build momentum in your life, is make sure you're having a next action for the things you're in. Expand your network, leverage introductions, broaden your circles. And that's not just in person. Absolutely ask people to introduce you to other people. But then, like, have a LinkedIn strategy for follow-up. Connect with everybody you met on LinkedIn. Reach out to them. If they're not on LinkedIn, see if you can find them on Facebook. But that's really important, especially if you want to be prepared for another form of follow-up, right? You can do direct connections and that kind of stuff on LinkedIn. And regularly reconnect with the network. I mean, BNI has that built in. Chambers kind of have that built in, but you have to be really intentional. It doesn't have built-in intentionality, but reconnect with people, do follow-ups. If you have a connection and it feels like a really good potential relationship, build into your CRM system, build into your calendar, like, hey, reach out to Bob again in 2 weeks or something, or a month. And I've mentioned CRM a few times. A CRM system is so powerful. because it allows you to put notes. It allows you to track appointments. It allows you to, you know, if you send out, especially if it's a sophisticated CRM, it allows you to do multi-channel marketing. So you could text people through it. You could, you know, if you make a connection on LinkedIn, it will track that. You can send emails out of there. And then when you know, have a reconnection with that person, you can see all your notes. You can see how they've connected with you. And it gives tremendous intelligence to how you communicate with another person. And as I said earlier, most of them allow you to scan in people's business cards now, which is helpful for in-person networking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that reconnection is so important. You know, the whole saying, you don't network to get business, you network to make connections that can bring you business. Sometimes you get lucky and you get some business out of it, but you can't just expect that to happen just by meeting somebody and talking to them for 5 minutes at a networking event. Even if you have a one-to-one connection afterwards, how easy is it for 4 months later? That person's probably forgotten that, right? So it's the regular reconnects. Pick the people that make the most sense for you to build those deeper, longer lasting relationships, and then regularly reconnect and use the CRM to help follow up.
Yeah, Ian, one thing you didn't mention that, which is also a function of the CRM that we use, is send a video message.
Yeah.
You know, because now, you know, instead of just getting a name, and it's like, I'm not sure I remember who this person is. But, you know, if they met you face to face and you send a video message, you know, that's going to help with them being able to recognize you and make the, you know, make the connection about the conversation and where you had it and stuff like that.
One of my favorite things now that I'm trying to be more intentional about with networking in my BNI group or when I meet people is as a form of follow-up, like, hey, check out, here's a link to my LinkedIn profile, see who I'm connected with and see if there's somebody that you would like an introduction to. Because I think that's one of the most powerful things in LinkedIn that we as business people, it's probably underused right now. And I think that's a really key thing where, you know, I should have mentioned this in the preparation section, but if you go in, if you're meeting in a particular town and there's a particular business owner that you want to meet and they're not, even if they're not at the networking function, if you ask somebody like, say, hey, this is my ideal referral, I'd like a connection with, you know, John, who's the owner of this business, you might get lucky and somebody might know John and be like, sure, I'll connect you with John. Like that's one of the highest forms of referrals that you can possibly get.
Yeah. And likewise, you know, in your prep, if you see that person that you want to meet is going to be there, look to see on LinkedIn who already knows them. If you know somebody, ask them to help make an introduction and they can walk over there with you and make that connection. So
amazing. Yep.
Paul, we're going to jump to you for measuring success, but before we do that, on this notion of follow-ups and CRMs, and is there anything you want to add on that question, or should I just dive into the next question?
Let's just go to the next question.
All right, so then it's about measuring success. So we talked about having a plan, we talked about things to do, but how do we measure success and assess the quality of our connections?
Yeah, look, the reason I just wanted to go into this question is because Ian mentioned it, and this is where a CRM is indispensable, really. Because if you're, even if you're just getting business cards from networking events and there's no digital business card involved, you can put that into your CRM and it can help you. You can set reminders for yourself to follow up with these people right in the CRM. You can get reminders because it's easy to forget these things. People are busy, things slip through the cracks. And Ian talked about LinkedIn and other social profiles. Schedule, like Ian said, staying in touch, schedule lunch. And again, CRM can help you set reminders for all these things. And to me, I think the biggest thing is you have to look at your ROI. This stuff takes time, you know, and if you're not getting results, then maybe you want to rethink where you're networking or how much time you should really put into it, because like I said, it takes time. And if you're not getting results, maybe you should put your efforts somewhere else. But I think if you're looking at measuring success, and I think that goes ties into the follow-ups, because networking, you have to follow up. And I don't see how this day and age you do it without a CRM, because everyone's busy.
Yeah.
And you need a way to remind you of things.
Mhm.
Paul, what are your thoughts about actually creating a pipeline, just, to set a structure and systematize, the follow-up from a networking event? You meet somebody, they go into the pipeline in a particular stage. It can then trigger an event to say, hey, it's been 24 hours, send this message, reach out to them, place this phone call. It can even make it easy for you, to just send you a reminder, and you press a button on your phone and you're calling that person as a follow-up. Have you given any thought to that?
Yeah, you can certainly use pipelines, and they can be really useful. They're always going to tie into some kind of automation. I think the automations are necessary. The pipelines are important, because you can do things without a pipeline. Pipeline will help you track things a lot better than simply setting up the automations. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider doing. Absolutely.
One other thing that's related, just because we brought up BNI, because it is kind of a really well-known networking group and referral group, right? Is that within BNI itself, it's got like really good tracking as far as how your networking efforts are being utilized, or your investments, I would say, into proper networking strategies. How invested you are in that. So they have like a traffic light, report, which is really helpful, just to know, like, hey, I've dropped the ball. I'm not doing as many one-to-ones as I've committed to previously, right? Or I'm not doing education, or I'm not giving referrals out, or I'm not getting referrals. And some of that stuff can be really, really helpful to people, because it's kind of a built-in system of monitoring and accountability.
All right. Anything else on this question?
Well, I just have something in general.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, you need to understand your business too, right? So if you're business to consumer and you're going to a business networking event of other businesses, you need to walk in with the expectation that you're probably not going to get a customer out of that. Maybe you walk in the mindset thinking, I'm looking for a strategic referral partner, somebody that I can build relationships with, somebody that I might have joint customer lists that we can share to make those introductions. So again, it's all about the mindset and the preparation and making sure that your expectations are set properly. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to who joined a chamber and then they're disappointed because they don't get any business out of the chamber. And it's like, you got to show up, you got to work the system. And part of that is BNI gives you a system. You still have to work it, right?
Absolutely.
The chamber gives you some structure of a system for networking, but you still have to use it. You still have to do the work, show up, be prepared, do the research, do the follow-up, all of those things. And you get what you put into it. And my big takeaway would really be, look and see how much time are you putting into this and what results are you getting out of it. And is it proving to be the effective marketing channel that you think it is? Most people are going to say this is the number one thing I need to be doing outside of word of mouth marketing. Is it really? Based on what you're prepared to do from an investment perspective. An investment is not necessarily cost, but the preparation. Well, there is cost associated with it, but the preparation time, the follow-up time.
And that goes back to the measurement, right? Like, a lot of people don't actually measure where their referrals came from, or the end customer came from. And I think that's where, regardless of where you're investing your time and energy in networking or referral building, if you don't track it, you'll never know. Like, every year I have a conversation with my spouse, who's the bookkeeper for the business, the financial officer, right? And she's like, you spend a lot of time at BNI, maybe you should think about something else. I'm like, well, let's look at the numbers. And it's like, no way. Like, this has been one of the highest referral points for our business in over the 9 years, right? Why would I give that up? Yes, it's a big investment, but if it's working, like that doesn't make any sense from a business standpoint. But if you don't know the numbers and you're only going by gut feel, you might be misleading yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you like networking and are a social person that just wants to be out doing social things. You got to really think, is that the best, highest use of your time? And you're right, if you don't measure it, how will you know?
Yeah.
I think we're on the hour mark. Does anyone else have anything that they want to add? All right, then let's wrap up here. Thanks to each of you, our marketing experts, for sharing insights. And thank you to our audience, our viewers, for joining us today. We hope you found this topic valuable. If so, please share the link to it with other businesses who could benefit from it. Be sure to follow us or subscribe on to our podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. So, Ian, as is our tradition, would you like to take us out?
Sure thing. Great topic, Jeff. Until next week, folks, keep calm and market on.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy Halloween.